Super Bowl 60 just ended shortly ago. I kind of was able to put these thoughts together pretty quickly because of the way that the game was playing out. This is going to be a discussion a little bit about the Super Bowl and a lot about the MVP situation. There was a lot of question, I guess I would say, from people who don't really watch a lot of football, apparently, of whether or not Matthew Stafford deserved the MVP over Drake Maye. Maybe it was just a lot of Patriots fans making a lot of noise online, but there were some talking heads that got into this conversation too. It was just really weird to me. But I don't have the stats for Drake Maye pulled up in front of me, but I do have Matthew Stafford's stats pulled up against the Seattle Seahawks defense, one of the top tier defenses, absolutely elite in the league. In 3 games this season, 2 of these were at Seattle, and one was the NFC Championship game too, no less. He had a passer rating of 110.8 with 961 yards, 8 touchdowns, and no turnovers, by the way. And just the eye test between these 2 players, it's not even remotely close. But the season that Stafford put together was something like 4,700 passing yards, 46 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. And basically no rushing yards. He had a single rushing yard for the regular season. Everything he accomplished was in the modern league where the majority of quarterbacks are considered to need the threat of the run. He does not need the threat of the run. He's that good. He picks apart defenses. He reads them pre-snap, changes plays, reads the progression of the play, just makes things happen, regardless of whether he's got good receivers or not. All elite great quarterbacks have had good receivers or elite receivers at some point. It's when you watch the actual gameplay, what is happening. This guy is like non-human, plays at a non-human way when he's playing football. It's crazy. And to think that this is his 17th season in the league. Drake Maye is not Matthew Stafford on any way, shape, or form. In fact, his stats don't even touch Stafford's. And then when you watch the games, he does not play remotely close to the way Stafford does. There's no conversation about MVP here. Now, then you can also take the playoffs. Again, Stafford put up a hell of a playoff run, including one of those games at Seattle. They still lost, but it definitely wasn't on him. Drake Maye bumbled his way through the entire postseason. He got to play against a Los Angeles Chargers team that has one of the absolute worst offensive lines I've ever seen. He got to play against a Houston Texans team with CJ Stroud. That about sums it up. CJ Stroud was constantly just trying to hand the game to them, and they still barely beat them. And then they got to play Jared Stidham and the Denver Broncos without their starting quarterback in the AFC Championship, and barely beat them 10-7. And before we talk about blizzards or anything, the first 40 minutes of that game, he didn't do crap. That's just so Santa Clara, there was no weather at all. So what are we talking about? He had the same kind of performance, actually worse, because he had multiple turnovers. There's just a terrible performance. Interception, fumble, sacked constantly. The guy has no instincts. The guy, somebody say he looked like a deer in headlights. He just had no idea what he was doing in the entire game. There was no adjustment at halftime. There was no hero play in the fourth quarter. Nothing worked out for this guy, and he's just not that guy. So I am very thankful that the MVP voters got this right. What I think is ridiculous is that Maye came 1 vote shy of tying Stafford. That's insane. He should have never been in the conversation based on regular season performance, based on, like I said, the eye test when you actually watch football and watch these guys play. And then it's a regular season award, but I think that the postseason performance and the Super Bowl for lack of performance justifies the decision that was made. Now, to move on to the Super Bowl, I had predicted throughout the week consistently. I had sent the message and friends, to friends and Discord and talking with my coworkers. I was saying 32-10. We got 29-13, which I guess is fairly close to what I was saying. Obviously a 4-point difference there, but still. same ballpark. And it really kind of goes to show strength of schedule is not everything, but it can be an indicator for sure. Every week in the NFL, you're playing against professional football teams. So, wins are wins, right? And that's just how it goes. My team, the Jacksonville Jaguars, they went on like a 9-game win streak to finish the season. And there were some cupcakes in there. There was New York Jets, Tennessee Titans, Arizona Cardinals, etc. But this team also beat the Indianapolis Colts twice, who, Daniel Jones got hurt, and they were relying on Phillip Rivers. But that team also still had one of the top rushers in the league, and we shut them down. And their defense was one of the better defenses, not like top tier, but they were a good one. So this was a decent opponent. They had a winning record all the way until the end of the season. And at one point, they were the top seed in the AFC. And then not only that, but we beat other playoff teams, the LA Chargers. The Denver Broncos went into Denver and beat the crap out of them. Like that game, it may have been a 14-point game, but it was not that close, like if you actually watch the game. Houston Texans, San Francisco 49ers, like the teams that Jacksonville lost to were some of the best in the league. The Seattle Seahawks, the LA Rams, the Houston Texans, at least when it comes to their defense. Because right now I'm about to compare Drake Maye to CJ Stroud. They had very similar playoff runs. The difference was Drake Maye's defense did a little bit more for him, but the performance was similar. Completely disappeared in the moments that mattered, and did everything they could to like hand the games away when it mattered as well. But anyways, it was definitely an indicator though. When you look at the Patriots, like who they played, I mean, first of all, they lost to the Raiders to open the season. That's crazy. But, early season. They split their series with the Bills this year. They were both close games, but they lost both of them. However, the Bills also weren't that great either. Yeah, they were a playoff team, but they were the best team they played. We got the Raiders, the Dolphins, the Steelers, made the playoffs, got their, asses handed to them by the Houston Texans, and CJ Stroud, who again was terrible. The Panthers, they beat them really badly. Playoff team that made the playoffs with a losing record. The Saints, the Titans, the Browns, the Falcons, the Bucks, the Jets. Again, of course, the Bengals, the Giants, the Bills, the Ravens. This year, Jets, Dolphins. Absolute cupcake schedule to get to 14-3 and make the playoffs as the number 2 seed. Their strength of schedule by the end of the season, because it adjusts, you adjust it based on what happens and what these other teams do, was the lowest in the league. So they had the easiest schedule in the league, and it was actually one of the easier schedules all time in the NFL. So, and then not only that, but like again, they play the LA Chargers with one of the worst offensive lines I've ever seen in front of Justin Herbert, CJ Stroud, Jared Stidham, and then they get to the Super Bowl. And I was worried for a minute we were all going to predict this crazy blowout. There's a YouTube poop on my screen. That's hilarious. Anyways, I was going to predict that it was going to be a blowout, no matter what. But I still had this feeling that it was possible, kind of like back in 2000 when the Rams and Patriots first played. The Patriots was one of the biggest underdogs there ever was, and they came out and they took it to the Rams and held them to 17 points and won the game close. I was worried that might happen. That did not happen at all. The New England Patriots were exactly who everyone thought they were that was paying attention, and that is possibly one of the worst teams to ever make the Super Bowl, with the easiest schedule throughout the regular season, and probably one of the easiest, I can't imagine an easier scenario to making it to the Super Bowl. And it really, I know that that Texans fans probably feel similarly, although CJ Stroud would have been like Drake Maye, but possibly even worse. But Denver fans, if they had Bo Nix and win that game, which they should have, considering it was 10-7, and make the Super Bowl, they probably have a shot at this game. At least they would have been a much better team than New England. And Bills fans want to claim this too, but I'm sorry, Josh Allen came out with like 4 turnovers and handed their season away. So as a Jags fan, though, I do think, like, when you look at the season, when you look at the teams, when you watch the games, the Jacksonville Jaguars were the most complete team in the AFC playoff. Offense was one of the best in the league down the stretch. Defense was one of the best in the league the whole season. Take the huge amount of takeaways, the best rush defense in the league. We had like a kind of a big play defense in a lot of ways. Like, they would give away big plays here and there. That's kind of what killed us. But otherwise, like, a very solid to elite defense, depending on, the scenario. Special teams, fantastic. I just feel like we had the coaching, we had the guys, and we had the credentials that if we squeak past the Bills, with what happened with Denver, New England, Houston, like, Jacksonville goes to the Super Bowl and does much better than this. It's crazy. But that is the Super Bowl. Congrats to the Seattle Seahawks. To win the biggest games, like, you got to beat the best teams. And the Seattle Seahawks not only did that during the season because they played in the best division in the NFL. You had 3 teams with 12 wins or 11 wins or more. And you had the Rams and Seahawks, who basically, because they played each other, were the determining factor who was the number 1 seed in the conference. And that probably decided who went to the Super Bowl. The NFC Championship was the true Super Bowl. When it comes to, like, having the best teams in the league play each other, this Super Bowl was decided at the NFC Championship. When the Seahawks beat the Rams, they beat the other best team in the league, and the Patriots were not going to beat them. Simple as that. It was congrats to the Seahawks, but it was kind of a sorry Super Bowl in a lot of ways. It was fun to watch the Patriots lose for several reasons. I don't really hate them, these days or whatever, but it was the Drake Maye versus Stafford conversation, and the insufferable Patriots fans when it comes to all that. Not just being like, look, we made it to the Super Bowl, that's fantastic, that's great, you're the runner-up in the league, but the indicators were always there that this team was going to lose, and it was not going to be good, it was not going to be close, and it totally panned out that way.